Hello and welcome to another tactics video, this time breaking down what was an extremely frustrating and frankly awful performance against a 10-man Everton side where United failed to score a goal and really failed to be convincing in any sort of respect from minute one. Forget 10 men, game was virtually the same at 10 as it was at 11. Everton simply sat a lot deeper as they went down a man, and it was extremely, extremely poor from United right from the off. After 2 weeks off, after 5 games unbeaten, honestly, just a completely shocking performance, in my opinion, and one that should not be forgotten. This one really pissed me off, man. I was really, really irritated about it. It's been stuck on my mind all night. I rewatched the game back pretty much right away after I finished my video, and then once again later on that night to get the screen grabs that I got. And honestly, it's pretty much only worth, in my opinion, breaking down and looking at what happened up through Everton's first goal. After that, yes, are there things to talk about? Sure, but we've discussed this before. After that, Everton are sat deep. United had possession. United had shots. United had chances, not great ones. They were poor still. The game didn't really change. You know, they were dominating territory. They were dominating possession. They were dominating a lot of things because they were up a man against a team that was parking the bus deep after going down one or up 1-0. So I don't find a ton of use in that aspect of it because of the game state at that point in time. If it was still 11v11 and United were hunting towards a winning goal late on in a game, as we were against like Forest or Tottenham, I would talk about those moments, which I did and break down. But because United are up a man, we can't tell. Was there any like good reason? Was there anything they were doing right that was allowing them to get possession and territory and control? Breaking down a loaded box can be difficult. It's not as easy, you know, it's never that easy, but they weren't great at it. We know that for sure. And I think obviously that's an area where we need massive improvement. We know that already. We don't get a lot of games at it. I would have loved to see a situation 11 versus 11 where United were camped in the opposition half trying to find a goal, even frustratingly so, for 45 minutes. We don't usually get into that situation. If you look at Forest and you look at Spurs, we were not in control of those games at all. Against Everton, obviously, with a man up, we were in control for the last 60 minutes of the game after the goal, but really, we can only say it's because of a man up. There's not much to break down in that respect. I don't want to break down the whole final thirds thing. If people want to go on about Amorim and criticize that we're not able to create chances in that final third in that situation, totally fair. You do that, but it's very, very hard to break that all down tactically when it's 10 players sat up wide and just not making it happen. Whatever they need to improve on that, they've got to improve on. What I want to focus on is how did we get in a situation to even being down a goal, because we were started off terribly. And if we weren't up a man, I don't think we would have gotten in a position of breaking down a low block, because we didn't really have the ball, we didn't really control it, and we didn't really do anything with it before that point in time. So let's take a look at it. And this one is really, really upsetting. I'm going to start with this sequence that begins, and it's a long sequence in the first 2 minutes of the game. And I'm telling you right now, this is the game. Everything you need to know about what happened in this game happened right here in these first 2 minutes. Everything. It set the tone for the game. And I always think with United, you can see the game in the first minute. Against Liverpool, we score in the first minute. Against Brighton, we created chances right off the bat. A lot of games, we're making chances within the first 2 or 3 minutes because it feels as though that's when how they're going to set up, how they're going to attack, how they're going to deal with the game, and whether they're focused or not. This first 2 minutes will tell you so much. So here's the first sequence, and the first thing that was really wrong with this game. And, you know, if you want me to sit here and say this is all on Amrim, I'm sorry, find another video. It's not. It's 100% not. It is a huge, huge deal to do with the players on the pitch and what they're doing. We missed, for one, Harry Maguire in there. I understand why he plays him at center and moves De Ligt to the right. Starting here, a really, really poor game for Lenny Yoro. If you look at De Ligt, we've seen this before with these two when they're on the pitch. If you look at Shaw, you can see how far away he is from his mark when they're defending in a narrow front three here, in essentially a 4, I guess you would call it a 4-2-1-3 in how Everton are set up in the way that they defend. They wanted to go man-to-man up front. They wanted to have wing-backs, you know, their full-backs back here so that they could come up and press. And they wanted to have 2 men in the middle and one following one of these. And they figure they can block off the passing angles. Well, right from the get-go, this is awful. Lenny Yoro needs to be about over here at this point in time. You see how far away Shaw is? It's not deceiving even by the camera angle. Shaw is significantly further away from De Ligt than Lenny Yoro is. Lenny needs to be up and out. Right now, he's inside of the pressing player, which means that if a pass comes into him, this player simply does a curved pressing run and he can't get the ball out wide. That was happening all game. All game. Really, really poor positioning. And this is on De Ligt as well, his decision-making in the pass here. If you look at Shaw, if the pass comes into him, it's angled where he can actually pass it over to the fullback if the ball is going to come into him. So you can already see the mistake there. And look at what happens. Inexplicably, sort of, De Ligt kind of runs forward, triggers the press. Lenny, once again, backs off instead of moving forward and wide to provide a space. It's just like, it's little shit like this that I go, what are you doing? You know, what are you even thinking? It's so weird, the play here from De Ligt. Unfortunately, quite a poor game from him. And again, one of the things with this press is that one of the midfielders would have been open every time one of those 3 jumped up to press. De Ligt kind of runs up, ends up passing it to Lenny here, who's sort of standing still and going backwards. And Lenny, again, inexplicably, instead of trying to receive the ball and turn up wide to go outside, turns inside, right back into the press, goes backwards, and ends up passing it to Lammens. Now you can see how bad the shape is by how many players are condensed in the center of the pitch, creating their own outnumbered situation where one player can mark them. That was bad. But then we get out of this situation. Lammens dribbles wide, smacks it with his left foot. Ahmad comes flying back in, dropping deep as a 10, which is brilliant. So you can see 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Ahmad drags his mark all the way back. Ball comes into him. Tinks it to Casemiro with a little layoff. Everything's great here. This is exactly what we want to see. I want you to have special focus on Mazraoui because I said in the post-match yesterday that he was actually fine in his positioning in the first half, and people were getting so pissed off because he was bad at crossing. And that's where I go, that's where I go. People got to separate certain things out in terms of what we're talking about here. Watch Mazraoui again. So Casemiro hits the pass. It comes into Xerxes, who dinks it over back to Ahmad, running through. Look at the space Mazraoui in. He's sprinting forward. He's calling for the ball. This is the exact situation we want our wingbacks get into. 10 drops. Everyone moves. Team is forced to one side. Winger is pinned in. And you end up with Mbeumo up against their fullback. We've seen this story 1,000 times. Usually with Mazraoui, we don't. On this side, you can see their fullback is up against Dorgu on the bottom. Again, this is not a back 5. Before I get too irritated, I'm trying to break these games down with looking at what's actually going on, not this constant clamor about back 5, back 5, back 5. When was it a back 5? I don't know, because I look at this, starting picture, that's not a back five. I see Mazraoui in line with the midfield. Dorgu, Mazraoui in line with the midfield. It was a 3. It's a 3. It's a 3. It's a 3. It's been a 3. It's always been a 3. Even with Mazraoui, it was a 3. Ball goes into Ahmad here, who passes it back to Bruno, who's in a large amount of space. Mazraoui sprinting forward with the opportunity to go ahead. And Bruno. Every single time. This was, again, an awful, awful game from Bruno. And you watch the highlights and you look at the stats and you think, oh, wow, he was so good yesterday because he was quarterbacking the play for 60 minutes against no pressure. This is the kind of shit. Instead of just taking the simple pass and switching it out wide, we've been talking about this since Fulham, about just doing this right and focusing on the right thing to do, on attacking the right thing, on understanding the system. He goes for this Hollywood side foot volley strike through to who? Dorgu is covered. Xerxes is standing behind the halfway line with Keane just a few feet away from him. Who is he passing to here? When he has a free man up top, but he has to go for the Hollywood side foot volley smash at 100 miles an hour instead of just making the simple pass, and it goes straight to Keane anyway, gets blocked. So already, again, an example of what goes wrong when we can't build up and we cannot control games and we cannot play through teams. It's not the system. The system creates an opportunity where you have a fullback running into wide open spaces over here where they can get one-on-one, or they can get their fast winger in Mbumo one-on-one running into the channel against a a defender he's going to beat, period. You're getting a 2-on-2 at worst situation out wide with your forwards. Instead, we're trying to smash the ball. And that was all off of already really poor play from the center backs. So what happened? Ahmad did his job. Xerxes did his job. They got it to the right players. The fullbacks and the wingbacks here are doing their job. They're both sprinting forward into those winger positions. But Bruno can't help himself with the discipline to focus on making the right pass. Smashes the ball right in here, and any sort of advantage is lost. There was no advantage. All he did was stand there and watch. Wait for the ball. He could have ran backwards if he saw it, but he read it perfectly because everybody knows what Bruno's going to do. He tunnel visioned his pass, and it was easy to see. So that was moment number 1. That was sequence 1, and it's not over. It gets worse. It's the same sequence from the beginning of the game in those first 2 minutes. It's the same sequence that comes here next. So let's take a look at that. And you'll see. Because it gets even worse. Because now you can see the other problem with the midfield. So again, he intercepts the pass, and he passes here to Ganagay. This is Bruno. Okay? Now, once again, Lenny, please, for the love of God, jump up the pitch. Really, really poor game from Lenny. If there was one major mistake I think that Amra made in the second half, he should have shifted Mazraoui over. In terms of in-game adjustment, he should have shifted Mazraoui and taken Lenny off. Lenny will be fine. He's a good player. He was awful in this game against Everton. He needed to jump on Jack Grealish here. Didn't anyway. That's just besides the point. Jack Grealish doesn't even get involved in this play. But you can see De Ligt is on Barry. Bruno should be on Ganagay here, and Lenny needs to jump over to Grealish. But inexplicably here, the pass comes into Ganagay, and Bruno just runs past him. I'm serious. Look at this. Look at where he is. The ball's coming into Ganagay. He just runs past him. He has the defensive awareness of a Labrador, just chasing the ball with no thought for what's going to happen next. He just runs right past Ganagay. Ganagay turns. Now, Ganagay is 36 years old, okay? And that's going to be relevant when I show you some pictures later. He's 36 years old. Right? And this is going to show everything that's wrong with our midfield right now. Ganagay's then able to turn. Now watch Casemiro. Casemiro in all 3 frames moves about 2.5 feet. In all 3 frames, he moves from about here to about here. Who's he marking? Nobody. He's not challenging the ball. He's not stepping in front of Barry, and he's not stepping out into Dewsbury Hall either. I think that's Dewsbury Hall. He's sat flat-footed, so the ball comes into Barry. De Ligt is running forward, makes a decent challenge on him, but Barry's able to flick the ball forward. Bruno gets beat again by the same player he got beat in the earlier step. Again, he has the angle here, but he's too slow or too unaware to catch up. Ball bounces to Gay, and in this instance, fortunately, Lenny comes over, intercepts the play, and pings the ball over. Now, I want you to watch once again. Casemiro, just flat-footed, slow. Look at how many United players there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Into the space that Lenny Yoro is going to ping the ball. Okay? There are 5 United players. Who do you think gets it? Ball comes over. Casemiro sort of wobbly jogging back. And of course, it's going to go to an Everton player. And he gets the ball, turns around, recycles play, and starts the possession over. I said after Spurs that we were not going to see my biggest fear, which I saw against Forest, and I've seen since Brighton, and I saw against Spurs, and that is, if that isn't going to change, then we're going to struggle in these games mightily, which is that our midfield will be second to every loose ball. They will lose every duel. And it has nothing to do with numbers. And you'll see in all these images that I show once again, they're not outnumbered. This very, very boring, basic analysis that it's 3 versus 2 simply isn't true. Ahmad is there, essentially, dragging midfielders around. Xerxes was there dragging midfielders around. And Mbeumo was there dragging midfielders around. Their midfielders are often covering the wide players. I think it was, their midfielders are often covering the wide players. Their 10 is stepped up on one of the mids, while their defensive midfielders are often tracking the 10s. In many instances, United have numerical advantages. The problem is, even with that, Bruno and Casemiro still have to be able to win some one-on-ones. They still have to be able to catch some loose balls. They still have to be able to get some second balls. There was a point earlier in the season where United were top of winning second balls. I guarantee you that isn't the case anymore. You can see it against Forest, against Spurs. I don't know exactly what has happened here. Like I've said before, though, I think it's just legs. They're just finished. They do not have the energy to run. Bruno is in massive decline, and people are in denial about it. He is in massive decline. This is what it looks like, And so when I'm heavy on Bruno and things like that, it's because I'm sitting there looking and saying, yeah, he's not the player he was before. I don't know how people can't see it. Bruno in the past is not a player I would have considered to be outrun and outworked. He is getting outrun and outworked by every midfield right now. I don't care about, regardless of defensive positioning and awareness, he's bad at all those things. He's been bad at them in every position he's played. He was bad at them when Ollie lost his job 5 years ago. But he wasn't being outworked and outrun. He's being outworked and outrun by everyone in that midfield. And that's a problem. And so is Casemiro. And whatever PR campaigns are being run on social media and, because people want to maintain good relationships with players and things like that in media, just sack it off, man, and look at what we're actually seeing. They cannot run. They cannot compete. And even though this midfield works, and statistically it works, it is not working. It is so limited. We will not control games. We will get outrun and outworked by midfields that have more energy and more effort. The only midfield that really didn't outdo us was Liverpool's, because their setup is Ten Hag-esque under Slot, where it's so open that we had such a massive numerical advantage in that game that we could win, because their midfield is just awful right now with how Slot is setting them up. We're not going to win and control games during this easy run. That was my fear during this break about this easier run of games, and the thing I said United need to fix. If they don't find a solution to this, especially with Šeško and Maguire out, we don't have the long balls, we don't have the box defending, we don't have as much playing out the back. The midfield is going to lose every single game. And we have enough talent to stay in it between the attackers and things like that. But then you lose Cunha and you lose other options, and it gets worse and worse. This is the problem, and this is something that has to be figured out. I don't know the solution, and it's not about players, and it's not about numbers, which I will show you in a minute. It is simply personnel. What do you do? We've tried other sort of setups. I think, as I said before, that we go back to something like Casemiro and Ugarte, so at least we have legs in the middle. I don't care. Something different, because this is going to be overrun by every half-decent team with energetic midfielders. It's a huge problem. We lose every second ball and every duel. And bear in mind, this is all a sequence within 2 minutes. You get poor center-back play, you get poor Hollywood midfield passing, and you get them being beat 3 times on duels, on passes, on tackles, on runs, and on second balls, all in the space of 2 minutes. Okay? Anyway, then here it is, literally not 10 seconds, 15 seconds later. They recycle the ball after winning it. Pass comes in here. He takes a heavy touch and slips. Casemiro is near it. You'd think he gets to the loose ball. No, this is again another example. Look at this situation. There's a loose ball that he slips, taps, and rolls away from him. Casemiro's in position to defend. Still can't get to it. He's closer to him. Football is a simple game sometimes. If you are the slower and worse team when you're closer to the ball, closer to situations, and you just can't get it, you're going to lose. He's closer to the ball in that situation. It's a poor touch. If we take a poor touch, they're going to snap on it and get back and get on the ball every single time. You know that is going to happen, right? But we lose in every one of those situations. Instead, he dives in with a scissor kick foul. Now, I posted a stat that neither Casemiro or Bruno attempted a tackle in the first half. And that is because fouls are not counted as attempted tackles. This is his attempted tackle of the game at 1:24. After a loose ball, can't get to it, too slow, has to dive in and commit a foul. Infuriating, honestly. So now, after that whole disastrous sequence, we go forward. Everton get back on the ball. Garner dribbles it out wide. I want you to look at this for a moment. And if you watch this sequence live, I didn't even have this one in my notes during the game. I noticed it on the second rewatch, and I'm just absolutely baffled by it. Garner dribbles it out wide. Casemiro comes running after him. Bruno comes running after him. Why are both of United's midfielders, pardon me raising my voice, why the fuck are both of United's midfielders ball chasing a player into a 3v1 situation and leaving the entire midfield open? Why? Because they're fucking brainless in the defensive awareness of this team. They have no idea what they're doing. And there is no way that anybody is ever instructing your 2 midfielders to go ball chasing to the touchline and leave the middle of the pitch open. Garner ends up evading them both, making the pass inside, that Shaw fortunately sprints out and intercepts and makes the pass into Xerxes, who, as we can see, is dropping deep, as with Ahmad, to provide support for the team. Pisses me off, man. Because it's so stupid. It's unbelievable that in a defending situation, both your midfielders are sprinting out to the touchline to press the same player and leaving the entire middle of the pitch open. This could very, very easily have been a goal or an attack early for Everton should that pass have been complete and should Shaw have not read that play in the way that he did. Again, same sequence. Xerxes gets it. He turns. Dorgu sprinting up the pitch. Gets the pass out wide to him. Ahmad running in front of him. And then here's where I want to say the other big problem is with our midfield. I was talking about this week the fact that we don't have players who can carry the ball. Dorgu gets it in the situation. Casemiro comes up in support. Passes it back to him. Xerxes running into this kind of channel here. Now look, what is the ideal thing for your midfield to do here? You have one player being marked. You have one player here. What you want your midfield to do in this situation, what you want a player to be able to do in this situation is simply carry the ball forward for a moment. We always have to do so much complicated, and this became really apparent in this Everton game. Our build-up and evading the press and trying to get the ball up the pitch is fully predicated on the ability to do zippy, constant, one-touch flicks and complicated passes. Nobody does that. Arsenal, best team in the league right now, top of the table, have Rice and Zubimendi deep, who can do what? Carry the ball well. They both can dribble, evade pressure, turn, bring the ball up, because it's easier to do that than it is to constantly have to zip one-touch passes everywhere with extreme accuracy. Sometimes just carry the ball. All Casemiro has to do here is take the ball, run forward with it, and either this defender's going to come out and then he can pass the ball to Dorgu, who's free into space, or this defender's going to stay on Dorgu and he can move forward, and either way it's going to drag the defense around. Instead, incapable of taking it on the dribble, he has to touch it over to Dorgu in another one-touch play, which means that Dorgu can then get closed down even by Njai coming back on the press. Because he has to touch it back to him where he's back to goal and the ball has to go backwards. It's so pointless. Why one touch it straight back in a situation where you have this much space? Dribble the ball forward and then either lay it off to Xerxes or Dorgu can get forward and you can give it to him on the run. Just carry the ball for 5 seconds, 2 seconds, 3 dribbles. The lack of ability to just take the touch, dribble, move the ball forward from the midfield is unbelievably shocking. It's like there's a bomb going off in their head the second the ball gets to him that they must release it right away. But that's just how they are. That's just how they are, unfortunately. Now, even through that, this is where it's really frustrating in this game. We had to go backwards, and much like the first instance, we actually do some really nice build-up here in the end. It goes around, it goes over to Mazraoui, and Mbeumo drops in. We've dragged them. The ball comes into Mbeumo. He's able to turn with a player on his back. That's what you want from your 10s. And it's also what shows you when you have good players, what they can do. And what I just said about being able to carry the ball. This is a player who's on Mbeumo's back, if you look at the image. But what is he able to do? Look at how touch tight the player is to him here, right? He's able to receive it and actually turn and carry the ball. If Mbeumo receives the ball in this situation and is panicked into one-touch passing, all he can do is send it straight back into Lenny, right back into pressure and deep. But no, he can actually turn with the ball, run with it, carry it, dribble it out of pressure. So he turns, runs, and we have that situation where he can hit a nice big switch over out wide. We don't end up... he hits the big switch out wide. A wide here, I think it's to Dorgu, who tops it to Ahmad. And then you get your second frustration of the same sequence and why this doesn't amount to anything. Look at the giant gap here between our two players and the rest of the team. Again, there's no energy. Nobody from the midfield is coming over and offering support by coming into one of these spaces to give them a passing lane or someone to go to. Huge gaps in the team. Look at how slow... Look at these images. And look at Bruno and Casemiro here and their inability to move. Look at where Mbeumo starts. Out wide of both of them. Runs all the way over here. Ball watching. Feet planted on the ground. Ball watching. Feet planted in the ground. No support offered. No running behind him to get forward into the space. No running over to support the team where the ball is going. Just ball watching. So when the ball comes over here, where are they? In the exact same spot as before. Ball watching. Just standing there. They've moved a couple of feet. And Mbeumo's already sprinted up off into his position up here. It's just... It's so bad, I don't even know where to start. The performance in general was bad here. Here's DIDNT. This one, a moment from the back, because the center backs were probably just as bad in this game. In this instance, once again, you can see the press, you can see the middle. Xerxes drops in, Mbeumo drops in, Mazraoui once again in line with the midfield. Not a back five. Never was a back five, never will be a back five. De Ligt on the ball, he has 3 passing angles. He can fire it through to Xerxes, he can pass it over to Mazraoui, or he can hit it through to Mbeumo. And remember I said, Amorim has been saying this too, that as good as De Ligt has been, he needs to be way braver on the ball. He has to be way braver on the ball still. He's still scared to make a mistake. He has all 3 of those opportunities to pass it through the press because, again, our setup was fine. And the way that we could have played through Everton was fine. They don't have the numbers. You can see Ahmad is dragging a midfielder around. That means we're 2 against 2 in the midfield, 1, 2, 3 against 3 at the back. And that means we have these players free as we should and as we always do. This is their 3-man midfield right here, by the way. You can see by dropping the 10s, it's always occupying 1, and that's leaving somebody open. We're not outnumbered. Instead, in this situation, again, and you can see on a different camera angle here, Mbeumo and Xerxes have space. Mazraoui's got space. Look at the gaps between them because the player going over here to Mazraoui can't mark Mbeumo in this situation. So if you make the play to Mbeumo, this player has to come in. Mazraoui can run up. He can turn and hit him on the break. If you send it into Mazraoui, he can run up the pitch. If this player comes to him, Mbeumo can run into this space. It's our bread and butter. We've seen it a million times. This is why I said it wasn't Mazraoui's fault what was going on in this game. And even though I'm usually not a fan of Mazraoui starting at wingback, besides his poor final third play, which was poor and is a problem, he was fine. Positionally, he was doing the job. Instead, De Ligt takes a really poor pass over to Yoro that triggers the press, and we end up having to go back to the keeper again. No idea why he does it. Really awful, 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 awful stuff. Then again, next sequence, ball comes out. It's over to Casemiro. Once again, has the ball, cannot, for the life of him, take a touch. This ball comes over to the front, I believe, comes back, comes in. Now, you have to realize, even within the context of this image, the ball comes bouncing over here. Ganagué is sat flat, marking Bruno. This player's turned here. Casemiro has a moment to take a touch and make the pass. You have Lenny in space. You have Mazraoui once again in space. Instead, what does he do? One touch, smashes it into Bruno off his shins. I don't know why. I can't explain it, man. I cannot explain it. What goes through these guys' heads? But the minute the ball is coming to them, he has a bomb on his foot. He has a bomb on his foot. The ball has to be fired away instantly. 2 opportunities here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Everton players over here. 7, 8. You're going to have a 2 to 3 on 1 over on this side. You get it into this space. You have Xerxes running into space. You have Mazraoui in space. You have Yoro in space. And you have a really good potential attack. This is all 4 minutes. We are 4 minutes into the game. And there's 3, 4, 5 situations already that could be significantly better simply by putting your foot on the ball, taking 1 touch to dribble out of pressure, and releasing the ball the correct direction instead of just 1 touch bullshit, firing it in the midfield. Instead, he randomly smashes it back into Bruno. We lose the ball, and they actually get a little attack out of that. Then we go about a minute and a half later. This is Everton with the ball off of the press. We press up. The ball's in the air right now, right here. Flying in to the number 9. We've seen this story before. He's flying into the number 9. De Ligt is going to challenge this and head the ball back into the midfield. Okay. If you watch this full sequence again, you'll see the same thing with Bruno as we see all the time. He's not marking anybody. He's not seeing anybody. And his feet are firmly planted in the ground. Again, header comes in from Barry here after the challenge back into an area, once again, where we should have an advantage. Still, Bruno unaware of his midfield mark. Ball comes in. Doesn't really make an effort to get it. Isn't really marking anybody. Comes back to Dewsbury Hall. And Everton retain possession. So even when we pressed well, again, this point on losing second balls, being poorly positioned for second balls, it killed us. Then on the next sequence, oh my, this is the worst sequence of the game. And if you do not believe me, that Bruno's legs are gone and that it is a serious problem, and if you cannot see this from this sequence, I don't know how to help you. Okay? I pointed this out earlier. This is Ganagay. He's 36 years old. 36 years old. Okay? Ball comes in from Pickford into him. Bruno does one of the strangest presses I've ever seen. Instead of running to Ganagay, he runs completely past him and gets fooled. What the hell? Where am I? Oh, here we go. I have to start on the next sequence. This is the worst sequence of the entire game for me. Where are you going? Anyway, so a really extremely poor timed press in the first instance. This is 5 minutes, 56 seconds, okay? Ganagay picks the ball up at the same level as Bruno Fernandes. Bruno does a poor press. Here you are 3 seconds later. Ganagay is about 2 yards past him already. Fine. Maybe he had a little bit of a starting run. Casemiro comes up. You can see like Xerxes already running back in defense. Yeah, they've got a numerical advantage here because we are completely out of sorts due to the random haphazard pressing. Look at how far up Bruno pressed from Casemiro. Half the pitch. Random, unplanned, inexplicable pressing. And if you're going to do that, you should have just sat behind Ganagay, not run past him entirely. Casemiro's going to step up. Does the Casemiro special at this point, which is sort of just runs over to him without actually marking or making a tackle. Pass comes into Barry. Because Casemiro steps randomly out of his space, instead of sticking in the passing lane to Garner, De Ligt has to step out to Garner, leave Barry, which of course leaves Barry open to take the ball here in this situation. Now keep an eye on Bruno. This is the same mark. Ball comes forward off of Barry, and look at this. 36-year-old Ganagay, who started at the same level as Bruno Fernandes, is now 15 yards in front of him, receiving the 1-2 pass off of Barry. So the question you have to ask yourself is Bruno lazy or are his legs just gone? Which is it? Because it's got to be one or the other. It can't be anything else. It's one or the other. He can't keep up with him over the length of the pitch. It's got to be one or the other. So you tell me. I don't think Bruno's lazy, but quite obviously he cannot keep up with a 36-year-old midfielder. This isn't going to work. This is why we will not control and win games against these smaller sides. It's okay against big teams when you can settle in a bit, when you can still play into spaces and on the break. But when you're forced to fight in the midfield and keep up, we're going to lose. He can't keep up. Ganagay is able to get forward all the way into the attack. Look at how far behind him Bruno is now. Look at the distance that he was outstripped by this player over 9 seconds. 9 seconds. He was outstripped pretty much by 2 full cuts of grass. I think that's about 20 yards. Ganagay is able to send Njai in. Fortunately, we're able to block it off. Yeah. I'm just going to go through a few moments further in this, but I think the story of the game is there. Pass comes into Xerxes. Poor control. Loses the ball. Again, position was fine. Did the right things. Xerxes had a poor game. I could have taken 10 images of that, of him just getting the ball and losing it. I've picked on the midfield a lot because this is a fundamental issue. It's not errors. It's just something that's going to keep happening over and over and over and over again with the midfield that we have without a solution. It's just going to keep happening. Okay. So, you know, I picked on them a lot because from a tactical standpoint, that's the biggest concern. That isn't just because they turned up poorly in this game. There are games they'll play better, but this has been a problem every single game recently. There's a lot of players who played like shit yesterday, almost all of them, but this is a fundamental issue. Now we're up a man at this point in time. We're up a man, and this is where we're going to concede. This is Keane. He's running all the way backwards from here. This is a center back. Here's Bruno on his man. Here's Casemiro. There's 1, 2, 3 against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're outnumbered. This is where in my live yesterday, I really lost my shit. And I said, just lie to me and tell me that we're being outnumbered in the midfield. Just lie to me, because it would be easier than accepting what's actually going on. And I'm just tired of that narrative. It's just not true. We're pressed up here. Xerxes can mark and Mbumo can mark. We have 2 extra men. Casemiro can mark. We have plenty of players to defend against this opportunity. Bruno has his guy. He's already poorly positioned, by the way, but whatever. Ball comes over. I think this is Garner, right? 37, who receives it. I pointed this out against City. This happens to Bruno all the time. Casemiro comes up to step. Bruno is marking thin air. He has absolutely no idea where his man is. There is no Everton player out wide. And he's completely the wrong side of him. Why are you marking the touchline in this situation? I have no idea. This is the exact same problem we had when the ball came into Foden, who was able to run all the way forward, where he just completely loses sight, eyes only for the ball, doesn't see the player next to him, doesn't see KDH simply take 3 steps to his left, can't do anything to block off the pass. It's not on Lenny Yoro once again, because Lenny Yoro has to mark Barry, who shifted over to that side. At that point, it's not on Lenny Yoro anyway. Ball comes into Dewsbury Hall. Bruno finally realizes where Dewsbury Hall is after marking the sideline for the last 3 or 4 seconds. Barry switches over to DIDNT. Bruno comes in, makes a half-hearted challenge on him, doesn't bring him down, doesn't make a tackle, doesn't get the ball. Then lets him free, lets him cut inside. Lenny makes a poor tackle here, and I feel for Senna Lamens here, because in this instance, it looks like Dewsbury Hall is going to shoot from here, and he's going to try to go near post. So Lamens hops over to that side. DIDNT is over here, so he's kind of covering the outside shot in this instance. Ball, you feel, has to come in here. I saw some talk whether Lamens could do better. In watching the replay, it's tough. Lenny Yoro makes a weak tackle, and it actually is part of what throws Lamens off, because he hits the ball further out wide, which means DIDNT ends up inside KDH, where he can curl the ball around when Lamens is expecting it in. So he's positioned a little bit wrong, kind of trying to shift and readjust, and ends up not getting all the way to it. He's too far over to that side of the goal. He was, but largely down to the fact that Lenny actually touches the ball over out wide. Sorry, a little more towards the center, throws him off there. But it all starts really with just inexplicably, unforgivably, you're up a man losing sight. And I want you to once again look. This bullshit, I'm tired of hearing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players and a goalkeeper against 2. Don't tell me this is tactics, that 7 players are conceding against 2. Just don't. Here's 54 minutes. I think this is one of the last sequences that I want to show here. Look at this. DIDNT fighting for the ball here, kicks it up in the air. Watch Bruno. This is what I'm talking about on second balls, on the lack of effort, on the lack of energy, lack of legs. Balls in the air, feet planted, watching. Like a Labrador, excited about the ball, just watching. Just watching. Just watching. Just watching. Until the ball comes all the way down to Grealish. He hasn't moved. Feet are stuck to the ground, growing roots. Hasn't moved. Even Casemiro ran 8 yards in this sequence to try and get closer to it. Hasn't moved. I'm just done with it. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. Yeah, it was heavy on the criticism for Bruno. That was it. I could have made a million slides over Xerxes losing the ball in those build-up patterns, over the center backs playing handhold, passing it back and forth, pointlessly putting themselves under pressure, and about 35 other times the midfield lost the ball, especially in that first half before Everton were really just sitting deep. It's the same story. It's the same story. If we don't figure out how to win our battles in the middle, and they're not battles based on not having numbers, they're not battles based on being outmanned and out-tacticked in the middle. It's simply outrun, outfought, and outworked. And there's no excuse for that. The excuse is that both Bruno and Casemiro, again, with respect to their careers, because it's a pretty critical of them video, are great players who've done great things, and their legs are gone. Bruno got outran by 20 yards by Gana Gay. So I could sit here and tell you he's lazy. I don't think he's lazy. His legs are gone. They are gone. If Amorim doesn't see that and can't adjust to this, especially in games where we need control, we're going to have a serious problem. Does it mean we can't win the next game? No, we can. We can win another game. They can put in some great performances here and there. We can have enough on-ball quality to win some of these games. We can. But we will not consistently win these fights, battles in the middle if something doesn't change. Because this isn't going to work. It's been getting worse game after game after game. All these teams with energetic, leggy midfields. That's what Forest have with Anderson. That's what Tottenham have. Even though they aren't very good, they have a lot of energy in that midfield. That's what Frank went for. And it's the same for Everton. Physical, hard-running, hard-working midfielders. A lot of teams have that, even if they don't have a ton of quality. They're going to beat United every single time. In the middle. And we'll be lucky if we can escape those games with points or with wins, because of the quality of our forwards and what we can do with the ball. So it's a huge problem to solve. It's something to figure out. I don't have the solutions, but it's why I'm so insistent. If they think that we are a sure thing for Europe or Champions League or something like that without making a move in January for a midfielder, they're dead wrong. This is going to cost us. It's going to get worse as the season goes on. It's going to get worse as the schedule gets more busy as well. This was after 2 weeks off, but they just cannot keep up. So, as I said before the break and after Spurs, this is the thing Amorim has to figure out during this easy run of games, because this easy run of games is going to turn into a very hard run of games if we don't figure this out. This midfield is not going to work. This pairing is not going to work. It's going to be outworked and outfought, and every game is going to be a scrap like this, where we cannot control and we cannot dominate when we need to. And those problems are going to be very apparent. So Amorim has to figure it out. But if you watch what's happened, it's blatantly obvious what's going on. And obviously this stretch, whether we, stay in position, and we're very lucky that the league is as poor as it is. We're still 3 points off of top 5, which is top 4, which is crazy. The league is very even. There's a lot of teams that aren't great. They have time to figure this out. We have the opportunity to figure this out with the easier schedule. We have enough goal scorers and good players that we can still win games during this period. But right now, it needs to be figured out. And in January, they need to take that opportunity to add some legs to this midfield. We have to. But something's got to be done. And that's, for me, what I will judge Amorim on. Does he persist with this? Do I think he has great options alternatively? No. But I was worried in preseason when he would only play Mainu and Ugarte and only play Casemiro and Bruno. No Casemiro and Ugarte, no Casemiro and Mainu, no other combinations, because this is what I feared would happen, and it is what is happening. So if you want me to be critical of Amorim, it's that. He needs to try something else in the middle. But as well, on the club perspective, I take a much bigger look at this and say, no, this isn't going to work. These players need to be moved on from. And if you think we have a chance at Europe this year, do something in January and get somebody in. Okay? Those are my thoughts on the game. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.